Welcome all. Thanks for joining. My name is Kath Morris from University of Manchester, and I've got the pleasure of being the academic director of something called the Research Support Office. And along with myself, there's Helen, who is our project manager, Helen Byram, who you've just heard speaking, and we'll hear speaking again in a moment, and also my colleagues, Lucy Bailey, and Kat Rains from Nuclear Waste Services. So between us, we're hopeful that we can give you some useful information on our annual Nuclear Waste Services Bursary Call. And we're going to start with a presentation in order that we can give you some grounding on the Research Support Office, and Helen will give you the details of the call itself. So next slide, please. Yeah, so the Research Support Office, there are some names I recognise in the list of attendees, and there are some I don't. For those of you new to the Research Support Office, welcome. And very much an oversight of what we're trying to achieve with the Research Support Office is to grow interdisciplinary, collaborative, underpinning research and development to underpin deep geological disposal programme in the United Kingdom. So next slide, please, Helen. So the RSO has been going since 2020. We have a structure that has a core team, and that involves myself, Lucy Bailey, Kat Rains, Helen Byram, Claire Corkill and Sam Shaw. Some of you will recognise those names from Manchester and Sheffield. But we also have a diverse community of colleagues called discipline leads in academia across this range of different areas, so from social sciences through to advanced manufacturing, and they're distributed around the UK. And as well as our spokes in those topic area or discipline areas, we have engagement with universities, co-funding, research centres. I can see a colleague from BGS is on, which is great. And we have international reach in order to deliver the best research to underpin the GDF programme. So you can see that we're going, we have a structure, and we have over 42 research projects in operation at the moment. And today's session is about getting the NDA bursary launched to continue that growth. Next slide, please. So these are our areas, and you can see there's a whole host of different areas. I mentioned social science all the way through to advanced manufacturing. They're all here. But actually, one of the things that we're finding is that interdisciplinary research is also required in the Research Support Office. So we often involve a number of different disciplines in our bursary calls and indeed in our other operations and activities. Next slide, please. So just to finish off, NWS has been committed to our PhD bursary calls. We had our first one in 2020 brackets 2021, and our second one in 2021-22, and now we've got today's call, which is in 22 to 23. In terms of the overall metrics, we are looking at in the order of 60 applications. We're looking at a community across tens of universities, and typically we're getting in the order of 8 projects awarded per annum. That gives us an annual success rate of 26%. And one of the key things from today's session is the fact that NWS is looking for geared funding for these PhDs, and that we've got multiple different pathways to that demonstrated in the projects that we've got going already. So I think with that, I'll pass you over to Helen on the details of the current launch.
Sorry, trying to juggle. I've only got one screen now. Yes, so I can go through some of the details because it does run slightly differently to some of the funding awards that you might be more familiar with. So looking at the sort of timeline for it, the call's open now. It opened last week, and we're in this clarification period at the moment, and that closes on the 17th of October. I'm going to go into a bit more detail about that in a second. The call then closes on the 21st of November. And then there'll be an evaluation, and all the evaluation is done by NWS. So it's not done by any academics at Manchester or Sheffield or anything. They're not involved. It's all done by NWS. So first of all, the sort of technical experts that have put the project briefs together will have a look at the technical side of it and evaluate the proposals, and then there's a further moderation panel just to make sure we're getting a good balance of strategic projects, and NWS is happy to fund them all. And then the award letters will be sent out by NWS in sort of mid to late December, hopefully before Christmas, so that universities that have been successful can begin their recruitment process to get students, because we've had feedback in the past that we sort of need to get that done as early as possible so that people can have access to the best students and secure the co-funding and things. And then the projects will start October 2023. So just a bit more information on that clarification period. So if you have any questions, changes to the project briefs or queries about the grant agreement, these questions will only be considered during the clarification period, and they won't be accepted after proposal submission. And all questions come to the RSO, and then we will engage with NWS to get the answers. And then all questions and the answers will be posted on the RSO website, and we will also obviously email them directly to the people that asked the question. It's in the interest of fairness. It's part of the NWS procurement policy to make sure that all candidates have the same access to the same information. So when you're sending in questions, it's worth keeping that in mind, and making sure that if you do have any questions, that they're in before the end of the clarification period on the 17th of October. So thinking about the application form, so if you look in the guidance document on the RSO website, it outlines really clearly all of the scoring criteria that the evaluation panel will be considering, and it tells you what weighting that has for the score as well. So this is just an example of one of the scoring criteria, where it's judged on the alignment to the brief and the technical understanding. And there's some guidance there, including what you should consider and make sure is included in your response. And then that element will be scored out of 4, and that's got a weighting of 30% of the whole overall score. So hopefully the guidance will be quite clear when you look through it. There's one of these boxes for each of the different scoring criteria, so it should be quite clear what you need to do to get a good score. And for the budget box on the application form, there is up to 145,000 available per project. But again, we do encourage some co-funding and making sure that you really outline any in-kind co-funding as well. That would be part of the project. We require a minimum of the UKRI rates. We know that they've just increased their stipend, so we've increased the budget that we're offering to account for that. And you might want to consider an enhancement to make these projects really attractive. And when you're completing the budget, you should itemise costs to the nearest £1,000 and make sure it's clear what you're asking for and why. So the grant agreement is something else to have a good look through when you're completing this application. The contractual arrangements for the grant are between the university that's hosting the project and Nuclear Waste Services. So Nuclear Waste Services is what used to be RWM. They're trading as Nuclear Waste Services, so it will say RWM on the contract, but they're sort of, you can think of them as Nuclear Waste Services. Acceptance of these terms and conditions is mandatory, but you don't need to complete the grant agreement. You just need to make sure that your contracts team has looked through it to say that they would be able to agree to it, or if not, which sections would they need to change, and put those questions to NWS within the clarification period. I will say that we've worked quite hard with NWS to change the template grant agreement to try and make it something that would be acceptable for most universities. We know that some universities will have different requirements, but because the same template has to be used for all universities, hopefully it will be generally acceptable for most. But if there are questions or queries, then obviously do send them over to us and we can put them to NWS to consider. So in the call this year, there are 13 projects, and there's on the website within the briefing information, there is a brief for each of these projects, so you can read about it as a summary and understand exactly what they're looking for. But if you have an idea that wouldn't fit with one of these projects, that's fine. There is an open topic that you can apply to, and that's for any project that supports the NWS Science and Technology Plan or new innovative areas that would underpin the GDF programme. So if you do research in the area and you'd like to apply, then you can always apply to the open topic. We won't get into details on these technical topics today, but if you do have any questions on the technicalities, again, send those in during the clarification period and we can get the technical expert to answer those questions. So why would you want to be an RSO PhD student? We think it's a great opportunity to do really impactful research. This is directly used to underpin the GDF programme. We're trying to ensure all the students' research gets added onto the digital safety case, engaging them with that process. So it's a real way if you want to do impactful research. I think that's a really appealing thing. And there's opportunities for placements with NWS as well and further development. They have the industrial supervisor who can provide guidance and context. We do have an annual conference every year. So this year's is going to be in January. There is registration for that open on our website, I think, at the moment. So do feel free to register for that if you'd be interested in attending. And we use it as an opportunity to encourage our students to present their work in posters or presentations, and do a lot of networking with NWS experts and other academics from across the UK that are working within this area. We also provide communications and engagement training, and if the students want to participate in community engagement events related to the GDF programme, then we are sort of developing opportunities for that to happen as well, which could be something that's really interesting. And we do encourage an enhanced stipend to attract these students, but although it's obviously not compulsory. And then there's a few requirements that we ask from the students, and that is regular engagement with their supervisor. We do ask for quarterly reporting, but these aren't too onerous, and just a good way to check in and see if they need any extra support. We ask that the PI will complete an annual return on research fish, and that any publications and presentations are just sent to the NWS supervisor before being made public, just to make sure that the context is correct, and adding in the NWS acknowledgement. So it's not too onerous for a chunk of funding. So if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask them now. Yes. Yes.
Sorry, I'm just wondering if the industrial supervisor has to be a member of the NWS team.
Yes, it would need somebody at NWS.
So we need to identify them first. Okay.
Although
you don't
interesting,
need to identify them.
But you
They'll
have to
be
put,
allocated.
okay, so you don't have to put them in the application necessarily.
No, you don't need to find your own sort of technical expert at SME. There'll be somebody that's already in charge of that like research area, and would act as a supervisor for it.
So each of the listed of the 13 projects, so those have been prepared by an NWS member of staff, you know, in conjunction with the academic discipline leads where appropriate. So we have people lined up. If it's in an open call, then yes, we would find an appropriate subject matter expert, and an open call would need to be aligned to our programme, so that there would be hopefully a suitable SME there for that.
So would there be, sorry, I'm taking up more time, but would it be detrimental or advantageous or neither to have industrial support from another company, such as NNL, for example?
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, sorry, Lucy. Yeah, we've got a few examples of that partnership. I think NWS probably wants to see something that meets the remit of the project brief. Yeah. But for the other topic, I think an enhancement where multiple organisations are brought in, it is possible. Lucy, I spoke over you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think we would be very interested in that and supportive of that, particularly if it's bringing some co-funding in. You know, we're looking at, you know, across the NDA estate. The RSO is specifically for the GDF program at the moment, so it would need to have a link into the GDF program. But yeah.
Okay. What if they can't co-fund it?
I mean, the application form is very clear. So any co-funding, matched funding, any benefits in kind, you know, please do emphasise that on your application form, because they do score quite highly. We have a limited pot of funding, so the more co-funding comes in, then we can have more projects funded in a nutshell. So it will only be to your benefit to increase the funding. It does not mean that if you haven't got any that you won't be considered, though.
Because it's just not always feasible, that's all.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, that's very helpful.
But they would count as in-kind support, Louise, through their engagement.
Yeah, so providing access to facilities, senior staff, etc. All of that definitely worth including in your application.
Okay, brilliant.
Right, we've got another question from Rachel. Rachel, are you okay to unmute?
Hopefully, hang on a second.
Great, yeah, we can hear you. That's brilliant.
I just had a question about the placements. It's kind of along the same line. Are they kind of included automatically and run through sort of the central team, or is it something that we have to think about and incorporate into proposals as well?
I think because you can see the diversity of the projects that we're attracting. So really what we want to hear is your thinking on that side of things. So very much tailored to your kind of vision for that. And then I think NWS clearly has restricted amounts of time that its staff might be able to engage, but a placement, for example, is something that we've discussed quite extensively in core team, and something that we would like to encourage if NWS is able to accommodate it.
Okay, great. And the other thing was about the co-funding. Is that something that could potentially come from the university itself rather than an external company?
Absolutely, yeah. So CDTs, university, external companies, we've got all of those models operating in our pot of matched funding, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Great. It sounds like we're, unless there's anything in the chat, Helen? No. So I think we're around, and you can email us if you've got any queries after this. But please be aware of that clarification period, which closes on October the 17th. So if you've got any queries to us in a formal way, then we can deal with it through that pathway. I think one of the things that we've learned over the last couple of years is that academics are less familiar with this this model. And just to re-emphasize what Helen said, if that query is a technical query, then just be mindful of the intellectual property associated with that query, because we have to we have to publish the question and the response from NWS in that as well. So it's a slightly different model to the normal academic route.
Can I also just emphasise, please, that please don't contact NWS staff members directly with queries. I know a lot of you have good relationships with us, and that's great. But to ensure an open, transparent process, our procurement rules require us to, as Kath has said, to publicise so that all potential applicants have access to the same information. So please send your queries via the RSO inbox, and we will field them with the relevant NWS staff as appropriate and publish them for everyone to see via the RSO.
Great, that's really clear, Lucy. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a formal process that we go through at this stage.
Sorry if it feels a bit awkward.
Yeah,
it's easier to, but yeah.
NWS has to meet requirements of the tendering process, so we've had advice on this. Excellent. I'll hang on just as we finish. Helen, are you finished from your side?
Yeah. So I'm going to post this recording onto the website. So if you know anyone else that's interested, then when it's live, you can direct them to there. And yeah, please do share it if you know anyone else that would be interested in applying as well.
And any feedback you've got, any questions, please direct it to the RSO. Thanks for your time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.